Somebody on X or Twitter asked me the other day if I'd ever worked with Lee Carroll. Wow. A whole bunch of memories came flooding back. Well, I've never made a movie with Lee Carroll. I think she was kind of retired by the time I got in, but she was still making personal appearances. She was still dancing in gentlemen's clubs. Well, I had already agreed to work with Caribbean Films, even though I hadn't made my first movie yet. And I was ready to go out there when they were ready to shoot, but I still had to wait a little bit. So the Caribbean Films got me a job working at a club in Indianapolis, which is great. That's where I was born and raised. You know, my grandmother lived there. I lived not far from there. It worked out really great. This was at the 38th Street and Lafayette Road intersection. It's a place called the 38th Street Bar. And it was a gentleman's club. And Lee Carroll had been booked in there as well. So I was not really well known yet, not for making movies. I was known for Miss Nude Galaxy, the contest I had won. So I had somewhat of a following, and I drew in some people, but not as much as an actress in the business, you know? So she was definitely the headliner. And the first time I met her, she came in and they had a poster of one of her movies. I think it was like the Debbie Does Dallas thing. And she was furious because the poster did not show her beauty mark. They had airbrushed it out. So she went over there with a black pencil and put it in there. She was pissed. So I got a chance to talk to her, and I told her, I've been thinking about making adult movies. And she says, oh, honey, you're going to have to eat shit. You will literally have to eat shit. I went, oh, really? Okay. She was rather adamant about that. I want to assure you I have not ever, nor will I, done that. Anyway, okay, so I, thought this she's got an issue, let's say. Well, I noticed that she liked to drink a lot. And, when you're with someone working 8 hours a day, you see a lot. Well, one of the things that she did on the very first night, after the show, after we do our little dance number, when you're a feature, when you're an actress in the business, they give you a microphone and you're supposed to answer questions from the audience. And one of the guys asked, are those real? And she said, yes, my whole family is amply endowed. And one of the dancers in the back went, oh, shit. And she said, will the bitch that said shit get her ass up here so I can kick it? I went, oh, what a class act this one is. Okay. So we went downhill from there, believe it or not. That night, as is standard, we went out, all the ladies, all the actors, all the dancers, and, some of the bouncers, some of the people that work there, we'd go out to eat, like at Denny's or something. So we went to Denny's, and she went with us. Big mistake. First of all, she gave this poor waitress all kinds of shit. I mean, it's Denny's, come on. She was really hard to please. Then, because she was so drunk and wasn't getting enough attention, she got up on the table at Denny's and started stripping. Oh my gosh. Well, most of us kind of looked at each other and went, we're out of here. And we left because we knew what was coming next. And yes, indeed, the police were called. Luckily, she got out of there fast enough that by the time the police got there, she was gone. The next night, she got so drunk that she passed out. And when it came time to close the club, they could not wake her up. they tried a lot. So they ended up just locking her in the club and letting her sleep it off. But she woke up, like around 5 or 6 in the morning and tried to get out of the club and set off the fire alarm. So the police came. And yeah, this time they got her. Because she was still drunk, right? Okay, so the whole week was like that. It was one thing after another. So here's the rest of the story. This particular club was partly owned by the guy that owned Caribbean Films. That's one of the reasons I had been booked in there. And the other guy that owned it was there the whole week. And he was manager, and he was a hands-on owner. His name was Jim. And we got to know him, and he was fairly cool. And when I say we, I mean me and my husband, who is now my ex. But he was a good guy, and everything seemed nice, right? Everything seemed cool. Fast forward a few months later, I'm doing the circuit in Michigan and in Illinois and Ohio, the whole area, right, of all these different theaters that Harry owned, the owner of Caribbean Films. And as I'm doing all of these shows, I'm just focusing on my show and which songs I'm going to dance to and the choreography and what costumes I'm going to wear and the whole thing. My husband at the time, Bud, he was much better at noticing people's faces. And of course, after I did a show, I'd do the question and answer session, but I'd come out into the audience into the lobby rather, and sell Polaroids with the guys and 8x10s that I had printed up that I would sign and stuff. So my husband noticed that there were these two guys that seemed to follow us around, whether we were in Ann Arbor or Saginaw or Grand Rapids or Springfield, Illinois. It didn't matter. These people were there. Mishawaka, Indiana, they were there. So he finally said to them one time, I noticed you guys must be big fans. You sure are following us around a lot. And they said, well, we're very interested in your wife. Well, yeah, I'm the performer, duh. And he says, yeah. And he goes, we're particularly interested in how she likes to start fires. Ooh, I did a fire show. And I did it not on like Mondays when there wasn't very many people in there, but almost every day when there was a good crowd. Certainly did it on Fridays and Saturdays, sometimes even twice if there was a really good crowd. And I would set myself on fire, basically. I had a little bowl, and I'd pick up the fire, and I'd rub it around my body. I had 2 torches. I would burn those, and I would rub those on my body. It's a special old trick, So I'm not going to give away any trade secrets, but that was basically it. And I heard this. And I came over and I said, well, I don't start any fires I don't put out. Like, are you accusing me of arson? So later we found out that 38th Street bar where I had worked with Lee Carroll, it had burned down under suspicious circumstances. And they were basically accusing me of arson. Because yeah, I'm in cahoots with Harry, the owner of Caribbean Films. Yeah, I work for Caribbean Films. I'm working in all of his clubs and all of his theaters. But I didn't burn anything down for insurance money or anything. Well, we later found out that Jim, the guy that also owned that 38th Street bar with Harry, he had been caught in a van driving around with a printing press, printing money. He was printing $20 bills. So he was found guilty of counterfeiting, and later he was found guilty of arson. And they were kind of investigating me, suspicious that I might have been the one, since of course, yes, I'm from Indianapolis, that I started that fire. Oh my God. Oh, well, thank God. They later found out I wasn't even in town that time when that thing burnt down. I was on the road in one of those other places of Harry's, whether it was a club or a theater, I don't know. But I wasn't even there. Thank God. So they couldn't pin it on me. But oh my gosh, what a can of worms, right? I didn't mean to get involved in something like that. Who knew? And Harry, oh my gosh, he was furious. I mean, he was having enough trouble as it was with the law, making sure that he towed the line when it came to the rules on his clubs, on his theaters, on his movies. You know, back then you had to have some kind of a social redeeming value. That's why we did the Rival Tales of Canterbury. It had social redeeming values. It was a literary classic, you know. Let's Get Physical, that was about ballet. She owned a ballet studio, you know. You can't say that's not socially redeemable. You know, nowadays they don't care. They're just, who knows, you know, just wall to wall. But back in the day, it was a little different. It was very different. But anyway, that was a very interesting chapter of my life. Very scary in many regards. Whew, glad that's over with. Anyway, that's my Lee Carroll story. Thank you for watching.